Welcome everybody to Kraken Cast Season 3, Episode 3, the podcast where we talk to various people in creative fields from game devs to streamers, YouTubers, musicians, and more. Today we're joined by Twitch partner streamer, ESO Stream Team member, and community-driven variety streamer, MsRadcore. MsRadcore is a tremendous content creator that we're happy to have on the cast today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, MsRadcore.
Thank you for having me, Octavian. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really great to have you back. So people who have followed the podcast on audio and on YouTube may be like, when I say have you back, might not know there was the great external drive failure of 2021. I lost about 6 wonderful podcasts. So unfortunately, our first podcast with MsRadcore was lost to the annals of time. So we're super happy to have her back. We have redundancies now, so that won't happen again. So
it's okay. I'm happy to take the blame for that. Somehow it was my fault. Everything breaks around me. It was my fault, and I'm so sorry.
More than half a world away, but somehow those tech gremlins slipped over. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. My bad.
So for people who are not familiar with you, I'm going to start with a little bit of the kind of get to know you stuff we covered last time before we get into some more newer stuff. So I just wanted to kind of start out with kind of some just basic stuff. What originally made you decide to go live and kind of like decide to start this whole like streaming hobby career sort of thing?
Cool. So I had never even considered streaming before. One of my friends suggested that I should give it a go. They were like, you're very engaging, you care, you want to talk to people, and this is sort of a great way to do it where I'm in the safety of my home, and I'm sure everyone is very aware of the safety of your home situation. This actually was happening sort of as COVID started. I was a good chunk of time out of my last job. I'd left my last job for various reasons, and I was just about to get into the whole looking for a new career path, looking for a new job, looking for a new passion. And yeah, this sort of just was an idea that a friend had, so I gave it a go. And yeah, here we are nearly 2 years later. So it's going well.
That's amazing. Very happy your friend gave you that idea, because it's been really great to be able to catch your streams and things like that. You're a very community-driven streamer. Like, we talk a lot about types of streamers, whether they're top-end gameplay streamers or educational streamers, talent streamers who like play music and things like that. Obviously, one of the big things we encounter, especially people who come initially from the Elder Scrolls category, is very community-driven. Because of that engagement, can you talk a little bit about maybe the decision to be very community-focused in kind of the way you produce your content?
Without meaning to, that's just sort of how it has always been. When I first started streaming, it was legitimately me I was always playing ESO, and I still do. I have a little bit less time now with streaming now actually having become a career, but I was always playing ESO, so I was like, well, that's what I'll stream. And with ESO, I am a guild master on the PCNA server, so I have my community there as well. Even before that, I was in my previous jobs always trying to create ways where everyone could connect, social activities during work, outside of work, all that sort of jazz. I was creating other programs within our workspace at that time to make sure that people were like, yes, it's work, but you're still a human being, and we should probably make sure that people know, what's your favorite food? Like, if we were to have a food day and like, I want you to bring something that they would enjoy, you'd know that because you've connected with the people within your workspace. And so it just sort of continued that way. When I was streaming, I have always done my best to keep up with chat, remember things. Oh my God, remembering things. But yeah, and it's just always been that way. I always want people to know that they are welcome and they are like cared for, they're thought about, because I know that in a lot of aspects in life, it's very difficult to find that because we're all busy, we're all really, really busy people. It can be really difficult to pay attention to the person that lives with you, let alone like your friends and your work colleagues or your audience, whatever that audience might be. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think sometimes it does get overlooked Obviously we've talked a lot about it with the other guests, the value of being very community focused. Before we kind of focus a little more on that like community focus and some of your more recent content, I kind of wanted to touch on a few things you said there. First off, you mentioned what's your favorite food. It's unrelated to the line of question, but I am curious. Personally, for me, it's spaghetti. Always getting to know people. What's your favorite food?
I'm known as a trash can. Um, I'm legitimately called a trash can in the community. My family have always felt the same. There's only been very few things that I don't really eat, for no other reason than the fact that like my dad was a chef. He still is a chef by trade, but he teaches hospitality now in high schools. And I've always eaten a lot of different food. If I was to choose one thing, I'd probably have to say my dad's pumpkin ravioli that he makes.
Ooh.
It's this like pesto cream sauce with chicken, sun-dried tomatoes, and it's just like so good. So good.
Fantastic.
I literally have it. I have it like once a year at this point, and I think that's also one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite food. It's so easy these days to just have a burger and have pizza, and like it's not the same as when you were a kid when you're like, I want a burger, and your mum's like, no, you will have what we have at home. And like the burger's at home. It's a beautiful roast dinner, and you're like, damn it, it's not a burger.
I want a burger.
Now all we want is like those beautiful roast dinners and like vegetables. And it's like, but I don't want to cook it.
Yeah, it's amazing how that changes. Yeah, in your youth, it's like I want a burger, not this beautiful home cooked meal. And same vein as naps. Younger, I'm like, I'm not taking a nap. I'm sleeping 6 hours a night. I'm not giving up any hours and time in my day. And now I'm like, I'm way more busy than I was when I was young. But I'm like,
I've been awake for an hour. Can I have a nap?
Yeah, can I squeeze a 60-minute little nap in here? Yeah, it's amazing how the circumstances change as we grow. You also had mentioned your background, and that's something I always like to kind of touch on if you're comfortable talking about it, which is what was your background? Like obviously you transitioned from what you were doing before, looking for a new career. During COVID, you started streaming, and streaming slowly became your career. But what was your background? Because I feel like our backgrounds bring a lot to what we bring to stream.
As mentioned, my dad was a chef. My parents own their own restaurant and catering business. So I grew up hanging out in the restaurant, and then eventually sort of working a little bit. I was a dishie, I was a waitress, and then when I was sort of leaving school, I actually was a hairdresser by trade for a few years. I was a colorist more than anything else. I worked for Tony and Guy in Sydney, which is like a higher end international brand. They originate in, technically like Italy, but London. And when I left Sydney, I actually was leaving hairdressing. I was actually leaving Sydney and hairdressing as a full cut, let's completely cut that chapter as an end. I moved to Melbourne and went back to sort of my roots. I went back into hospitality. I worked at a cafe earning legitimately, very illegally underpaid, but it was helping pay my bills. It was keeping myself and my best friend who I moved with afloat. It was a lot of fun, and I ended up moving into inbound sales and outbound sales for an energy company here in Australia. Wasn't the intention. I was being referred by a customer at my cafe, and they accidentally gave me the wrong referral link. So instead of going and trying to get a job in customer service, I actually went into a sales role. Oh my God. No, thank you, ever again. It was a great couple of years. There was a lot of really cool stuff that the company did for people. And yeah, it was a good experience. I'm very grateful for it. There's a lot of good friends that I made along that journey that I would never change anything if I ever lost those friendships and connections and experiences. But yeah, never again was not my thing. I did pretty good, but there was a lot of factors that affected me. And then that had to come to an end when my partner got really, really sick. And it was one of those sicknesses where they didn't really know what was going on. So I was working full time, trying to look after him full time as well. And my work, as they do, HR is kind of there for the company rather than for the actual humans within the company.
True.
So I unfortunately just didn't get the support that I needed or the answers that I needed about how I could continue working and looking after my partner. And it got so much that I ended up having to quit. I was at that brink of a pretty bad mental state, and I had to quit. And luckily enough, and I will obviously wrap this part of it up because I'm sure there are people listening that are like, okay, but is your partner okay? He is completely fine. It was a really horrible time in our lives. It's not fun to have a weird near-death experience with a partner at any age, but he's fine. It turned out to be, they still have no idea what happened, but he's okay. So that's just where we have to leave that one off. But yeah, and then I legitimately spent anywhere between, I think it was like 6 to 9 months in my house, in my bed before COVID even happened, because I was very, very severely depressed. It was a horrible time in life. It's a lot to deal with, that sort of stuff, when full-time work, full-time care, full-time like mental anguish all at once, nonstop. So wouldn't recommend it, team.
Yeah. Very fair. Thank you for being so candid with that. And yeah, obviously something we talk about a lot is mental health and things like that. Obviously mental states and the like. So it's good you got through that, but it's obviously how those things can definitely build up and kind of shape our perception. But also likewise, it's really interesting to hear about your background, because as we kind of alluded to at the start, talking about community stuff, you have a lot of background in the inner workings and behind the scenes of things that deal with working with customers, working with people, making connections. And obviously that comes really through in your content with your community and things like that. And kind of speaking to that community, I know recently, obviously you've kind of made the transition to doing a lot more community driven games. That's not to say you no longer stream Elder Scrolls Online, but you have mixed in Minecraft and other games and things like that, kind of a little bit at your community's behest. I'm just curious to talk about, before we kind of look back on what kind of led to the decision to like broaden your content out a little bit more and start exploring other games and other forms of content besides just the Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, well, outside of streaming, I've always played a couple of different games with friends. Overwatch and Apex, lots of like first-person shooters, things that I would never enjoy really streaming long-term, even mixing in an hour or so here and there, which we have done with Apex. It's really rough because I like interacting with my chat quite a lot. And first-person shooters, like, I can't really listen to my alerts. I can't read chat. I need to hear footsteps. I need to hear gunshots. I need to be paying attention to like me and my game and what I'm perceiving within my game for 15 to 30 minute stints at a time. That is not the type of stream that I've ever really been like wanting to produce. But when it comes to other things, like we've been doing a bunch of different kinds of games, things like Minecraft, we have a community server, which one of my community members is kind enough to assist with hosting. So it's always there, it's always up, it's always around. A bunch of us play at different times. You know what Minecraft's like, or if you don't, Minecraft is one of those games that, you can pick up and like absolutely smash it like 20 hours a day and never put it back down. And then all of a sudden you'll take like 3 or 4 weeks away from it because you're just like, okay, I'll be back. Like, you can pick it up whenever. But the majority of the reason why, more than like just like one extra game here and there, because I know that a lot of people will play at least one other game, we're in the middle of a bunch of first playthroughs because the community has requested it. I've got a first playthrough of Dragon Age Inquisition that I'm in the middle of. I've got a first playthrough of the Borderlands series, which actually my wonderful moderator and friend Ego joins me on kind of both of those because they are 2 of her favorite series, including many people in the community, Comfortable Stranger and Case, and oh my god, too many people to name that love like Borderlands and Dragon Age that have been helping with that. And we've also been trying to, previously we did a lot more like Spooky Fridays where we would play like Outlast because people wanted to see me do horror games because they were like, I bet you're not as tough as you seem and you'll be all screechy and things like that. So people are asking for more variety, which it can be really difficult. Like there's a reason why the Elder Scrolls Online directory is such a wonderful place to be. There is an absolutely incredible amount of people that really enjoy the game, that really enjoy the community. And it can be really difficult to branch out. And funnily enough, last night, Locke, I want to say thank you so much for the raid. I'm so sorry that at the exact moment I raided over to Ninja.
Oh no, it's perfect. Those are always fun.
Always fun. But funnily enough, speaking with Ninja in his stream, like he brought up the whole idea of you cannot stick with just one game. Like, yes, it can be your main game, but if you are only like going absolutely 150 million% on one game, and then you try like 6 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years down the line to start adding something else in, there's going to be issues where people are like jarred, are not interested because, they're used to, you are an ex-streamer. Why are you doing Y? Like, right. What's happening there? There's confusion and resentment. And for me, like we've talked about, this has become a career. I love ESO. I doubt that I'll ever leave it. I've spoken to so many people about this. There's no other game like it. It's the game that got me into actually gaming. Like I was playing Overwatch with friends and then my partner was like, let's play ESO. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, I'm a GM of a trading guild and I'm online like 12 hours a day. I don't think I'm going to be leaving it anytime soon. But I do have to make sure that I am not becoming bored. I have to make sure that I'm not becoming resentful of the fact that every time I have to go live, I have to play ESO. Otherwise, no one's going to turn up because no one knows me any other way. So there's been some just chatting. There's been some drawful. There's been some Minecraft and horror games, and I'm doing some D&D stuff with some other like friends and content creators on every sort of 2 weeks. Like I'm really trying to branch out to make sure that I'm getting experiences, but also that the community is experiencing me as a content creator in a different way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of amazing things to unpack there. I think you touched on a lot of really great points. And just to kind of showcase that a little bit before, as we dig into those points. And for those of you who are listening audio, I'll read off there. You can see, if you look at, this is MsRadcore's breakdown for the last 90 days. You can see 32% Elder Scrolls, 63 hours in Elder Scrolls, 36 in Dragon Age Inquisition, 36 in Borderlands 2, 26 in Minecraft, all those things that MsRadcore was talking about. And the reason I wanted to bring up this like distribution and this change and talk to MsRadcore about it is because if you look at the overall overview of Rad's channel, the channel has almost 1,500 hours of Elder Scrolls. So that obviously is a big percentage change over that recent time. And I think it's
a little obsessive.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to look at things like that. I wanted to kind of like showcase those numbers and list those numbers just so people can kind of get an idea of that kind of scary transition that can be made. And I think the first thing I want to touch on though is obviously you didn't quite mention it, but you kind of live and die with the game, not just if you only do one game, not just in that people are like, why are you doing something else? And the longer you go without variety, the more people are like, why are you doing something else? But there's also the truth of, if Elder Scrolls Online, gets lower viewership, lower numbers, lower people playing for a period of time, your numbers go down. And if it has an amazing content push, then your numbers go up. And it takes some of the agency, I feel, as a streamer away from the streamer, because you can't control the popularity of a game even if you do a variety of games. But if you only do one, you basically are tethered to the success of that game. And I think we've seen recently last year with World of Warcraft, if heaven forbid, if you only did ESO and ESO blew up one day, now you're at a much worse point than you would be if you had already made those steps to branch out?
Yeah, so continuing on that idea of like, what if that ever happened? It all ties back to even why I put my Discords together. I originally was really adamant about keeping my guild separate when I started streaming. I never was like, guildies, come, like, watch my stream. I'm streaming. I'm a streamer now. Like, come watch my stream. Like, I kept everything really, really separate because I wanted people to know that, like, you're my guild, you're my family. I'm looking after you as a separate entity. Like, you're never going to have to be tied to that unless you choose to, unless you see that I'm doing X thing and you want to, you know, come and support me doing that. But in the last, about a year ago or 6 months ago, I merged my Discords because I was like, you know what? These are my communities and a lot of them are mixed. And it was a lot for me to look after what was basically two separate entities when they were so connected. And it's the same idea. You need to sort of make connections within that also branch out. Because the worst thing that could happen as a content creator, as someone that is on the internet for their job as a whole, is to put absolutely every single egg that you have in that one basket, which for most people just in general is Twitch. But within that Twitch basket, if you're just putting all of your eggs in one game, you know, what happens? What happens then? Like, what's the next step? What do you do if ESO or whatever the game is that you're playing crumbles? What do you do if Twitch as a platform crumbles? Like, what is your like next step? And have you already got things in place, or are you going to be scrambling at that point when the absolute worst could happen? So that's sort of, I'm really trying, like, it's 2 years, like, this is obviously working out. I need to make sure that me and my community are safe and able to continue to progress and grow forward together, because I don't want people to ever feel left behind. I don't want people to ever feel like there's this horrible thing where, and it has happened, where people will come into the ESO directory and they'll kind of get what they need, whether it be viewership or charity help when it comes to, you know, them trying to get those sorts of things. And then they're just sort of gone, you know? I don't want people to ever think that that's what I'm doing. Like, it's not like, oh, I've grown myself for 2 years in ESO, so I'm out. Like, I've, as you said, 1,500 hours of streaming the game. I don't think you could say that I don't enjoy the game. Because outside of that, there's even more content that's happening for me as a guild master. Like, there's more things that I can't really do on stream. But I want to make sure that I'm still enjoying this in 2 years, in 10 years. And to do that, I need to have more experience, because I'm not a very experienced gamer. I'm a community manager in a lot of ways. But when it comes to gaming, I'm very slowly getting more experience so that I can be of help. I can be a resource. I can be a home for many people in a lot of different ways.
That's tremendous, and that's a really, really great outlook. And there's a couple things, like, keep unpacking things, you keep bringing up amazing things, and I love that. What I do want to talk about is that transition. We do have a lot of people. Some people are just interested in the behind the scenes of streaming. Some people are streamers themselves, and that is facing the fear, because Twitch is very, what I like to call, gamified, right? We have achievements, the affiliate achievement, the 200 people are chatting at one time. Like, Twitch has achievements like it's a video game, getting affiliate, getting partner, even if you're on YouTube, you know, getting monetized. All of these are like these metrics driven milestones. So it becomes very easy as a content creator to get metrics driven. I always try to liken it to like 3 progressive sliders, because there is the amount you have to push yourself to grow, to hit metrics for sponsors, for whatever the thing may be. But it gets easy to push that slider to 100 and forget about creativity. Are you pushing yourself as a content creator creatively? Are you growing creatively? And then obviously the community slider, are you doing things for your community? And I think it's hard to find that balance. And I want to talk about it because former guest we had on the show, 8-Bit D, brought up something. There's 2 different drop-offs that can happen, that generally happen to everybody after getting partnered, which is slightly after getting partnered, because some people love the rush of being there when someone gets partnered. You have the initial kind of like slight drop off once you're a partner. That's just normal because, you know, some people are just there to see the end of that end of that milestone. And then the secondary drop off comes often from once somebody, if you do make the decision to branch out. And again, going back to those numbers, obviously you had tremendous growth going from 11 viewers in June 2020 up to 110 by March, peaking out in July at like 194 average viewer. And as you kind of went into variety as 2021 ended and you moved in, obviously your average viewership declines, not just because ESO itself kind of has lower numbers then, but because you were moving to variety. And now it's picked back up and your averages are higher again and you're starting to build back up now that you've made that change. But I think it can be hard for content creators to see the light at the end of the tunnel or the next milestone, because you initially just see the drop. And I'm just curious what support networks or things you did to kind of brave the numerical statistical drop that is needed, because you have to drop before you can grow. You can't grow something new without pruning the bonsai tree. Like you have to prune a little bit. Like if I'm going to take 40% off the ESO tree, probably going to lose a chunk of audience initially, but it will come back. But how did you get through the decline before the incline started coming back?
Oh, everyone's going to hate me for this answer. I didn't notice because I don't look at my viewer numbers.
Fair. No, that's fair. That's definitely a fair approach, I think.
I really rarely look at my viewer numbers, and even when I accidentally glance at them, and they are high or low or not what I would expect, whether that be a good or a bad perception, I legitimately have everything. Like, I have found every single possible way that I can turn my viewership numbers off. My bot, the numbers are off. My activity feed, the numbers are off. My stream manager dashboard, I don't have my numbers on there. I don't even know how many followers I have unless someone says, oh, it looks like you're close to, or you just hit. I didn't realize I hit 5K followers until someone said, hey, you're at 5 point blah on. And I don't mean that. It's not that I don't care. I'm so excited to think that I've hit 2K, 3K, 5K, that one day maybe I'll be lucky enough to hit like 10K or 100K or something crazy. I can't look at that stuff. I have extreme anxiety when it comes to numbers because, as you said, you can't grow without a loss. And it's the same with things like followers and subscriptions and viewers on a live stream. You always have, like, you've got your pickup, if we're just going to look at viewership, you've got those people, those wonderful, wonderful people, which you guys are incredible, that are sitting in your channel for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour before you go live, and they're chatting. And so when you go live, it goes from 0 to like 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or however it might be. And then sometimes that it'll stay there for like 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be. And then it'll go up. And then as your day progresses, if you really look at those graphs, it just goes like this. And then sometimes you'll have a big one, and then you have a really big one. And it doesn't matter in the end, because as long as you are engaging with the people that are there, engaging with your game, creating something that even if you're not enjoying it right this second, in the sense of like, I'm doing VMA and this is awful, that could be something that later on someone's clipping it. That one person in your chat that's having a great time watching you die like 40 million times in a row has clipped it, they've shared it in a Discord, and then all of a sudden, you got 2 more follows and someone's there the next day. Gandalf turns up and it's like, if you just did this, you'd stop dying so much. Because he somehow always knows when everyone's doing VMA. It's very scary. I don't look at your numbers. Every 3 months, I 100% agree that, like, you need to be doing this like any business. And I know it's hard for some people to look at this, like, because especially for us, it's so weird to say to your community, like, yeah, this is a business. It is. This is how we pay our bills. So we need to work like a business. Businesses don't look day to day. If they did, they'd lose their minds. Right. Quarterly at most, because that is where you see like change, where you see patterns over a longer period of information.
So yeah, I am. So a lot of people already know, I have an analyst background. The most from growing conventions to my most recent job working on brand and reputation management, which is about growth and numbers for tech companies. So I look at my numbers more than most, but I love to hear answers like yours. I like to hear different answers from every guest because I do feel like there isn't one size fit all. There's the never look at your numbers, and that's the best for your mental, that's the best for your creativity, that's the best for your community. At the end of the day, it's don't live and die by your numbers, because if you look at your numbers every single day, and the thing you said is the most important from an analytical, I do look at my numbers very frequently, but I read about 10 different numbers, not just viewership metrics. But I wouldn't advise
so much more.
But I definitely would never advise anybody without an analytical background where you can look at the numbers and remove yourself from the number and take your self-value off of the number. Because what you said is true. The 90-120, which is analyzing quarterly or every 120 days something. If I looked at my podcast, and I use that as the example because we're in the podcast, I could go, first 2 podcasts, this is bad content, my numbers are down, I have 15 people here for this podcast, abort, we're out of here, versus it's something I'm passionate about and can never build. So there's something to say about metrics and looking at them and going, this works, this doesn't work on a longer time frame. This is what I'm passionate about, so I'm going to push on despite it, things like that. But I think what you mentioned is all really important stuff. I think even if you look at numbers, not judging your self-worth as a creator purely by the metrics, because again, Twitch and even YouTube kind of teaches you that. And when you start working with sponsors and advertisers, it kind of teaches you that numbers are all that matters. And it's very easy to get lost, especially if you push for partner, to get lost in the sauce of the partner push. And then even I, who thought I had a good grip, took 6 weeks to kind of untangle after getting partner to realize, oh, I've changed a lot about myself because I just became this number focused person. And that's comes to the detriment of what you're producing, because you start producing safe content, which is fine, but you're going to burn out and you're going to get bored and you're going to get tired of your own content if you're just producing safe content. You should have that to fill the fact we stream so many hours. It's okay to have safe content, but it's not okay to only have that and not push yourself, I feel personally.
I 100% agree with that, because if, like, for instance, for me at the moment, my current focus in ESO specifically is fishing, which for some people is like, wow, you're just doing that because you don't know what to do in ESO. Like, no, I've legitimately never really fished in ESO and I want to get Master Angler. But like, that shit is mind numbing. So I need to be chatting to people. And like, I want to do that on stream. It's such a great way that I can really engage with people. Because then if I end up, you know, the next day playing Minecraft where I'm really focusing on a build where I can't really look at chat for 5 or 10 minutes at a time while I'm like analyzing what I'm doing, like, that's okay. There's suddenly across the week span a balance between me being able to be like this, where I'm just like constantly on and chatting and going for it, and then having those sort of more quiet times where I can focus on what I'm doing in the game, whatever that might be, or Minecraft or Spyro for the first time, or trying to listen to lore in Dragon Age. Like, there needs to be balance. There needs to be times where you're doing things that you're not comfortable with, because I loved playing ESO because it meant that I could, and I still do. It means that I can chat all the time because I know what to expect. Nothing freaks me out, because my anxiety gets really intense when I don't know what's happening next. And so a first playthrough of any game can be really overwhelming for me, because my first thought is, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Am I going to be able to talk to chat? Am I going to be like, am I going to scream in a second? Like, am I going to swear? Oh, I should make sure I'm on mature content in case I swear. Like, because I don't know what's going to happen next. And I feel like that's like great content, but it also means that for me, it's changing how I'm doing my content because I can't chat as much. I wanted to touch on something that you said before, and my brain went off on like this just absolute.
As somebody with ADHD, and it's not just an ADHD thing, I'm all about. I have 3 tracks going, but we're on the 4th track. What was on track?
I forgot the second.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the second track. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. I think it was to do with the metrics. You mentioned like it is okay to look at your numbers. I don't think that there's anything wrong with looking at your numbers, not looking at your numbers, reviewing them daily, reviewing them monthly, never looking at them at all. You've got to do what works for you, because if you can't sleep at night because you're stressed, you're depressed, and it's all relating back to your numbers, you need to change how you view them, how often you're viewing them, and why you're viewing them. Because for me, I look at my numbers again, at least quarterly, because I need to. I need to support myself. I need to support ego. I need to make sure that my community is happy, but I also need to be happy. And looking at my numbers every day does not make me happy. It makes me very, very anxious. So it works for me.
Yeah, and that's why it's very important. I love that question, and I love those answers because you answer it different than just this season. 8-Bit D, It's Iffy, yourself, 3 distinctly different answers, and the only through line there is what works for you. And you might not know what works for you at first. So even when it comes to looking at analytics and your numbers, sometimes what works for me is weekly looking at my numbers. I went from daily to not at all, and I found that weekly works. You need to look at it quarterly. And obviously the difference between I stream as a hobby, I stream to maybe make it a career, versus I stream as a career, kind of the different phases. Because some people just stream as hobbyists, and then you really shouldn't care about anything. Once it is kind of more of a career, or almost a career, like obviously, like you said, you do have to look at it quarterly, because you mentioned before, if it is your main source of income or your secondary form of income, it is a business. And so there's a certain business aspect where you have to go, okay, to make sure I get the sponsorship deal, my numbers need to be up. So maybe I'll do a little of this for that reason and things like that. And how can I make that fun? But yeah, I think the most important thing, like you said, is what works for you. And it's the same thing with people who start in one game, such as ourselves. Technically, I started not in one game, but then went to one game and then branched out, versus people who start in variety. It's, again, they both are a double-edged sword. I kind of wanted to talk about that double-edged sword. We already talked about what it's like to grow massively in one game and then switch, obviously 1,500 hours to, having a really good mix of variety. But I also kind of want to talk about the other side of that, which is starting in variety has a benefit where everybody is already used to the fact that you do multiple things. However, because you can't ride the wave of the game, the growth can be
hard mode.
Yeah. It's kind of hard mode for the growth. And I just wanted to kind of touch on that, because for Iffy, it was a stratagem in choosing a game to grow in initially. For you, was it a strategic thing, or was it more just ESO is what you were already doing, so you just kept doing ESO?
ESO was what I was already doing. It's what I'm still doing. It's, like I said, where my community is. It's where I enjoyed playing the most. And as I touched on before, with ESO, I had already been playing for a little while. So other than like brand new content, I knew what to expect. A lot of the time, up until probably the last 6 or 12 months, I was doing my writs every day on all of my characters. So there was legitimate, like almost automaton content where I could be benefiting myself as a player and my guild, whilst also being able to chat with everyone and share knowledge. It's one of those sort of balancing acts of, I'm doing it already, so why not continue to do it on stream unless someone asks for something else? And that's sort of, in the last 6 months, what started happening. I did ANZ Bitfest, which was my first ever like campaign that was like about me. Hi guys, my name is MsRadcore. Please support me for being me. Whereas all of my other campaigns have always been charity driven. That was a really daunting thing. But during that, we did my first ever playthrough of Portal. My partner came on stream with me and joined me for Portal 2. I did a scary game. I did some like just chatting. And the whole time it was like, hey guys, we've got this thing where we've got to like do stuff that involves you literally loving me, so please love me. Like that was like really, really daunting. But it also opened up viewer rewards. And when those rewards came to fruition, it was everyone gets to choose like games that we're going to be playing, and that's where Dragon Age came from, Borderlands came from. We've been doing crafting streams. I've still got to do a cooking stream, but oh my god, how do people do it? How do people do cooking streams? I don't know how to do this. I've been trying to figure it out and struggling. Like there's just so many new content things that people wanted to see that everyone asked for, that now I am learning to do, which is fantastic, because people look at us, you know, we've got that little tick icon, and they're like, yeah, you know what's going on. Like, mate, I put my pants on one leg only by accident and then sit down. Like, you know, we're all the same. Like, we're all the same. I have no idea what's going on half the time. I just hope that people are enjoying it. You know, that's.
And yeah, you mentioned the tick mark, and I know because there's a lot of people who strive for that or see that as the milestone that is. But I kind of feel the same way. It's like, as a content creator goes, I don't feel that I am any different of a content creator for being a partnered streamer. I'm no better, no worse than anybody else at any other size, whether they be much larger or just starting out or smaller, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
To me, the check mark has and it was always about business doors that it opened, because my viewership was higher before the check mark, but I couldn't get any sponsors or potential partners to talk to me, partners as in business partners. And then even though my viewership dropped after that, as soon as you have the check mark, again, back to the business thing. So for me, yeah.
You look profesh.
Yeah, they see the check mark and it helps with that. But as far as like content, if you get too fixated, and I think a lot of streamers do get really fixated on, because it's a huge milestone to get it. And then your content can start to revolve around becoming a partner, the push for a partner, to the point that once you get it, you've kind of burnt yourself out to the point that you don't know what content to make, because all the content you were making and all the community you were building and all the hype you were building, everything was put behind this partner thing. And now the check mark's there. What do I do?
What's next? Yeah, I found track 2, by the way. I've gotten there again. That's what we're talking about. That's partnership. It was partnership. We've gotten there. You know, I believe I said this during the last podcast. When it comes to like push for partner or getting affiliate, things like that, don't make that the only thing that you're striving for. Make it something that happens. That's wonderful if it can happen. I had never, like I said, I still barely understand Twitch. When I started streaming, I didn't know anything about the platform. I was learning off friends. I actually happened to be moderating for about 6 or so months for that Dahlia, well before I'd even considered streaming myself on Twitch. So starting streaming and then ending up affiliate a month later, and then ending up within that year becoming partner, like none of this even crossed my mind. I didn't know how any of it worked. And then now, having done it for a little while and seeing my content creator friends, or just friends in general, or just streamers in general, you know, coming onto the platform or having been on the platform for a while and pushing for affiliate and pushing for partner and pushing themselves to the edge of just content creation, like hell. It's really hard to watch that happen, because for me, I'm like, don't do that. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. People will be drawn to you. If you get the check mark, sick. That's awesome. But it's not the be all and end all. It really isn't. There's so many other ways that you can be seen as a professional in the industry of content creation. And just by doing those things, it could drive your community to grow on Twitch and get you partnership over time without causing almost, it sounds really weird, you're putting a lot of pressure on your community. I'm pushing for partner, guys. You've got to be here. If you're not here and my numbers are down, I'm not going to get it. Like, this is about us. And I'm like, yeah, it's about us as a community. But it does kind of turn it into this like really negative like thing, which should be fun and built over time, and memories should be built during that time. It's just really scary to watch sometimes, if that makes sense. That was track number 2.
No, it is scary to watch, and it is hard. Like I said, I got trapped a little bit in it. I more got trapped in it knowing that the time of year it was, if I exclusively did ESO and I cut out some other games, my numbers would be higher. So after my first and second failures for partner, I did that, and it still took me time to get out of that. But yeah, unfortunately I've seen really amazing creators burn themselves out. I've seen creators that I really admire get close, get the application, and not get it. And you start judging your self-worth, where Twitch is just looking at like an algorithmic measurement of numbers. It has nothing, back to looking at numbers, has nothing to do with value. There is content creators I watch who average 15 viewers. Sometimes they have more, but mostly 15. They don't even push for higher numbers because that's the content they make as the side, as a hobby, and they create some of the most creative and entertaining stuff. So it's hard because numbers on Twitch, because of discoverability on Twitch, are how you get further up a directory so people can find you. But on the same hand, the number of followers and the number of people viewing you has no value. And usually I don't pull things from chat, but I do want to pull something from chat here because the phrase be true to yourself is extremely, that's the most important. If what you like
Nico
to do,
gets it.
Yeah. If you like to do it, that was a comment from the Nico Optical for those of you who are listening to this on audio and can't see the chat there on screen. But it's true because that's how you end up making the best content, is by being true to yourself and that's kind of leads to two other points. One of them is second guessing. I want to talk to you if there's things that you've second guessed yourself on, and if you have, how you've pushed through, or maybe if there's content you've left by the wayside. Because I know for me, I spent one night, I had this wild idea I was going to do a dance on stream. I put together scenes and a song, and I put together how it was going to work. And I thought to myself before I went live, when I was first going to do it, people are going to hate this. And I thought to myself so hard that people wouldn't like it, that there was a moment, which has become one of the most popular things on my channel, is doing random weird dances, that I wasn't going to do it because I second guessed myself creatively and didn't even give my community a chance to respond to it. I'm curious if you've had moments like that where you second guess something you want to do to the point of delaying it or maybe even not doing it.
So second guessing myself, it just happens all the time. You know, we're all human. Yeah. We all, at some point or another, over some project or work related thing or personal thing, we always second guess ourselves. It's kind of human nature to see the worst in things, including in ourselves. I definitely do that a lot. When it comes to like Twitch and second guessing myself, I feel that way every time I go live. Like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe people are bored with me. Maybe I shouldn't be playing this game today. Maybe I should change my like complete overlay. Maybe YouTube would be better for me. Should I actually use my TikTok account? Instagram Reels, are they worth it? like everything, it's constant. It's all the time. And the thing that helps me is just, as those things are going through my head and everything's ready to go, I just hit live, and then I've got 4 minutes to pull my shit together. And do what I'm meant to be doing, which is just interacting with my community, hopefully growing my community, hopefully entertaining people, and also hopefully just making sure that people feel welcome, because like I've already said, like that is my main goal, is trying to just make sure that people feel welcome in whatever space that they have. It's another reason why we do a lot of shout outs. You know, it can get overwhelming sometimes, especially for my moderators, and we've sort of in and out discussed, you know, are we doing it too much? But, you know, if a shout out that one day helps that one person find someone that they really love, and that means that I never see them again, honestly, I'm happier than if they were just hang around because they just were used to hanging out with me, if that makes sense.
No, it does make a lot of sense, yeah.
It's really hard not to second guess yourself, but it comes back to that same statement earlier. You know, you just got to be true to yourself. And if being that anxious second guesser is true to yourself, you know, do what you can to obviously work through that. There's obviously a lot of personal feelings behind why you feel that way, and I'm aware of that. I'm in the middle of trying to do a lot of things for my own health, both physical and mental, to work through a lot of these things, to be a healthier version of myself. Not just for me, but for my community, because we all have those struggles, and sometimes we need that person to give us that kick up the butt and sort of say, like, no, you need to do better, because if you don't do better, then why should I? You know, like it's that back and forth community driven, like hold each other up type thing, because we can't do stuff alone. But yeah, it unfortunately for me, I don't have an answer for that is overly positive. I'm always second guessing myself. I'm a very anxious person, and I'm always worried that I've done the wrong thing in some way, shape or form. But I've just got to remember that there are people that do often come forward and say, hey, this is why I really enjoyed today's stream, or at the end of a stream, someone says, thank you because this happened today. And I, thank you for helping me smile. Or even if no one in chat just ends up saying, wow, that was a really crap stream. I won't see you tomorrow. Then yeah, I won. That's excellent.
I think you, one of the things you really touched on there, and this is kind of the last thing before we kind of transition away from the numbers, the analytics of it all, that's really kind of important and kind of inspired me by what you were saying, which is, you're talking about the community and the feedback and things and how important that is. And I think that is kind of looping back a little bit to when you start trying new things, if your numbers drop and things like that, to remember. And the thing that got me through it, and has always got me through it, is, sure, last two streams were ESO. We're just going to use hypothetical numbers. I'm not going to use actual metrics, but let's say they were 100 and 100 because we're just going to use even numbers because it's easy. And then the next day I got salty, angry, getting into the lore, beating bosses, overcoming a dragon, playing Elden Ring, but it was 40 people. It's very easy to see, and that's what I wanted to mention earlier. It's very easy sometimes for people to see a 60% drop and be like, people hate Elden Ring. If you were brand new and you jumped into Elden Ring, it was your first stream ever, you wouldn't have 40 people. So back to the community thing, what I look at is that 60 people who love it when I do ESO. When I do ESO, a lot of them are still going to be around, appreciate them and love them, and don't mind that they don't watch when I do Elden Ring, because maybe that's not their game. That's the type of content they don't like. The truth is 40 people decided to see what it was like, because that's a completely departure. And I think I wanted to bring that up about numbers, because I think it's important for anybody who does stream, is thinking about streaming, to remember is when you switch things and your numbers go down, don't think that I am down 60 people just using my round numbers, or 2 people or whatever it is. Think, wow, 40% of people are still here, still engaging with this oversaturated, rage-filled game that I'm doing in my case, or building things in this wonderful block game like you're doing. I just wanted to kind of bookend a conversation earlier, because I think it's so important for people to realize it's hard sometimes, but look more at the people who are there and not the people who aren't there.
It's that optimism side of things. Even if you like you said, just hypothetical numbers of like 100, you could look at hypothetical numbers of 5.
Yeah.
And 3 people still come to your next stream. Those 2 people could have had to drop the kids off at school. Maybe like they're working. Maybe they're just watching someone who's playing a different game. Like, there's so many things that are outside of your control when you go live. There are so many times where, you'll have a change of viewership, even if you are doing the exact same game every single day for the rest of your life, because every single day for the rest of your life is a different day. There's different people around. There's different responsibilities that people have from hour to hour. And it's the same for yourself. Think about all of those people that you want to hang out with. There's people here right now at this live stream that, could also be watching. How many bloody people stream on Twitch, let alone all the other platforms. And at the same time, there's a bunch of people that will be listening to the podcast later on that, again, there's just so much content out there. Be exceptionally happy and grateful for the wonderful community members and new friends that you make as each new stream comes along, because you just never know what that could mean in a month, in a week, in a year. You start seeing that same name popping up in your chat that just was randomly there for that one Elden Ring stream that you were so scared to do, and they just never left because they loved you as a person. There's just so much that can come from not staring at that, oh, I lost this.
Right.
But I gained this.
Yeah. And then what you brought up there is really important, and also I think is worth bringing up. There's so many factors in life. People have to go back to work. They're not able to work from home. Their lives take them in different directions. They have different hours at work. So the kids are in school. Maybe they're just deep into a weeb anime binge, and they don't feel like watching Twitch for the next 6 months. And I've always tried to put a lot of value.
Busy.
And I've always put value on that versus being like, where has so-and-so gone? And oftentimes people will pop back if they've been gone for months or weeks that have been part of my community, really active in the past, and they've been inactive. And I'm really happy to see them back. And they'll always be like, sorry, I haven't been around for months. And I'm always quick to say, don't ever apologize for life. I I mean, I'm very grateful that you feel so connected to the community that you know, are happy to be back. And I'm so ecstatic you're back. But I always tell people, you don't need to apologize for life. I'm just happy that you're here and can spend time when you have the time and want to spend the time.
Funny that you mentioned that. It would have been, I think, February. I had a community member who I haven't seen in a long time. I knew that they were busy. They had like study that they'd started doing. I knew that they were training to do like cross-country biking and things like that, like cycling. And they popped in and I read their name and I burst out in tears because I was like, oh my God, how are you? Like, it's been so long. I haven't seen you. And so like, I actually genuinely feel emotional just thinking about them again because I hadn't heard from them. Now and then I was getting DMs from them. And they just stopped for like months because they've been busy and it just happens. And I can't answer every DM that I get anyway, even if I was to get them. And it was just like, it's that moment where you realize like, I hope that you guys know that are in chat that if you do take a break away and you are genuinely a part of a community, sometimes it'll take us a stream or two. Sometimes it'll take us a split second to go, oh my gosh, hello, how are you? I've missed you. Like, what have you been doing? What have you been up to? How's life? Like, tell us everything because you're thought about. You're a human being and so are we. And there is connection. We're a community for a reason. You know, like we genuinely do think of and care about as many people as our little brains allow us to. Because it is hard. The longer you start doing this, it does get more and more difficult to remember every name and every story. But we try. And like that moment made me realize like, holy crap, like I really genuinely do care about all of these like knuckleheads in chat. Like, it's that wonderful feeling of realizing that there's a lot of love out there and it's nice to focus on that. Again, tying back, like it's nice to focus on that side of things rather than, oh, I've lost or they're not here or my numbers have gone down.
Yeah. And to kind of continue that also for the people who aren't long-standing community members, I have a lot of memorable experiences. And I think it's also to value again when people might only be there one time. I've had people come in who chatted, were there one time, said, hey, you know, I was down, I caught your stream and it picked me up. But I've had people who are part of the community say that, and that always touches my heart. But also when just a person just stops in for one time, even if they're only there once, I think more valuable than some bits or a donation, subscribing to Ko-fi or subscription. I always try to make sure I always end my streams by thanking people for, and it comes back to that time, because at the end of the day, whether they're just listening to you while they clean, they're just popping in for 5 minutes, they're there an hour before stream for the entirety of your stream, every stream, no amount of, and again, just want to talk about all the positives because somebody decided to take time and some portion of their life and they're sharing it with you and with the community. So I think it's good to talk about all these positives because streaming is a very personal solo journey a lot of the times, even with amazing support networks and amazing mods and amazing communities. At the end of the day, we have to market ourselves and plan our streams. We have to produce, we have to entertain, we have to do all these things, and it can become very isolated feeling, I feel, for a streamer. So I think it's
the most lonely social job you'll ever do in your life.
I agree. So I think talking about the good is there because that I feel helps balance out some of those negative thoughts. Kind of talking about that, we talked a lot about community. We've talked about all these amazing things. I do want to talk a little bit about networking. I think it's one of the most important things to me because I believe it's the most important and yet misunderstood, misdescribed, and misrepresented on Twitch because people will tell you, you need to network. And they'll say, you don't need to network. Networking is bad. You need to make friends. And we're not talking about person to business. We're not talking about any of that type of networking. That's different. I'm talking about peer-to-peer networking because at its essence, and I say this a lot, but at its essence, networking and all, because I come from a background with a lot of networking is making personal connections on a genuine level without expectations with fellow peers, which is a lot like making a friendship, but with people that understand where you're coming from. And can be scary to network because there's a lot of bad actors and sometimes you worry if people are going to think that you're trying to leech or things like that. Like I try not to.
I was just thinking about the word leech. I was like, yes, leeches.
Right. And I've had people leech, and I try not to even worry about the people that leech, so I can keep myself open. But it's hard because I worry about, before I started this podcast, the first time I had reached out and talked to you, and the first time I reached out, a lot of people I already was part of their communities and networking a bit, but it was still scary because I'm like, I don't want somebody to think I'm using them because of that negative connotation networking is getting. So I'm just wanted to talk a bit about networking and the importance of being able to have these peer-to-peer connections where you can talk about, because at the end of the day, more important than doing a co-stream, more important than having somebody on your podcast, more important than all these cool things you can do when you get to know somebody, there's important to be able to go, this is bugging me. I'm going to root around in my brain. I need to talk to somebody else who streams, a fellow peer, about this, because if I don't talk to somebody who has a more internal understanding, I'm going to go mad. So I'm just curious about networking and kind of your approach to it, or what that's been like for you.
I have done a lot of like incidental like networking, if that makes sense. I am not 100% sure how or why. Like for instance, as soon as you said like, networking and making like actual friends as well as peers, I thought of Rin, because Rin was someone that I randomly raided due to a community member of mine suggesting it. And Rin is someone that I would consider a friend, and also a peer. And then there have been other times where I've met people through the space and raided and hung out with, and gotten that feeling of like real like leechy vibes, where like it's very face value, and you can kind of get that you just want me here because I've got a tick in your chat, or because I'm engaging your chat and you, and or whatever, or like I've brought people from my community who are exceptionally supportive, and you're like, ooh, they've got a really good community, I'd love to be a part of that. And it's not because of the community, it's because of what they can get from the community. Right. So I've had both experiences a few different times, and it does make networking really scary, because I'm not just thinking about me, I'm thinking about like the space that I currently occupy, in the sense of the people that I already know, the connections I already have. What if I bring a peer into this space, incidentally end up hurting someone because, they get used or leached off or whatever it might be? Like, again, this is just my anxiety brain.
Right.
It goes to so many places. But it's a genuine concern, because again, it's a social networking job. And the term social networking influencer content creator is so gross to a lot of people because of the way some people use that to their advantage in some ways, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't have a great answer for this, because I've really struggled with it. I was so grateful when you first and now reached out about the podcast, because you are someone that I've said many times, like I love your content. I find you exceptionally engaging. I enjoy how you are able to pull so many people together, provide a safe space. Like, there's just so many positive things that I can say about you. And I was really grateful that you wanted to chat to me. I was exceptionally nervous. I'm in some ways very glad that last podcast in some ways is gone, because I don't know if anyone was here that was there for that. I was so nervous. My anxiety brain took over that day, and I like nearly cried the entire time. It
didn't come through on the podcast, but yeah, it is lost
which
I'm
all the time. So grateful for.
Anybody listening to this now is gonna think you were just like huddled up on the verge of tears the whole podcast. It actually didn't. It's one of those anxiety things where you feel it the whole time, but not a single person watching, unless they really probably knew you super well, noticed that at all. But still,
ego knew.
yeah.
Ego was in my DMs like, you're doing great, have some water, breathe, unpurse your lips, everything's okay. But yeah, like I'm really grateful to have the second opportunity, because you are like, and I told you this. I was like, oh, are you sure? I thought that the last podcast went really bad. I never saw it go up on YouTube. I like legitimately, my view was I did so badly and it was such a horrible like stream that you were like, delete that file. We'll just never talk about that again.
Unfortunately, I think it was a stray tweet and a stray quote on my Discord, and obviously we're part of 100 different people's Discords, and Twitter goes so fast. I'm sure I put it out there, and it's one of those things where, in retrospect, when I talked to you about it and you'd expressed that to me, I was like, uh-oh. Because it's one of those things where I put it out there, and in my brain, I'm like, yes, I've said it. Everybody has seen this tweet for some reason. It's Twitter, and the chance that everybody's seen it is super low, but I put it out there, so everybody must know, because I didn't think to reach out individually. So I'm sorry that you had the anxiety with that, because there was a number of amazing casts that I'm getting those people back to do another podcast with, because they were all tremendous. But unfortunately, it
was never me literally thinking that. It was just always that moment of like, oh no. But yeah, networking is something that I am still getting better at. I'm still practicing, because even outside of social media jobs, networking, even just going out and making friends, like trying to date, like it's all about like practice, and it's all about like in yourself you need to be comfortable with yourself. And currently for me, I'm not. I haven't been for a little while, and that's why I'm doing a lot of things to try and improve my health in a lot of ways, mental and physical, because I'm not comfortable with myself. And if I'm not comfortable with me, I can't comfortably move forward and say, hey, I'm Kristen. It's really nice to meet you, and I'd really love to get to know you more. Let's like have a coffee over Discord, or like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard to do that even now with someone that like I love, like even like messaging Ego and me like, do you want to like play some video games or something?
And
it's hard.
No, and it's hard, and even for someone like myself who's done a lot of networking and gone through like the ups and downs of it, there's still difficulties there, because I still come at it from this perspective that's not true, that if I'm going to reach out to somebody, I need to be providing them. Like, I treat it like, if anybody's familiar with anime, Full Metal Alchemist, where there's got to be some equivalent exchange if I'm going to like reach out to somebody, which is not true. You can ask somebody a question without having to give them something in return. And that's, I think, a lot of my holdbacks initially with just reaching out and getting to know people, even if I was actively on their Discord and actively in their chats, and they knew me by sight when I came in and I was genuinely part of the communities. I still had a hard time reaching out until I felt like I was providing a value. And that goes back to like, I don't want to ever come off as a leech, but at the same time, it's unfairly treating others like they are also leeches, like they would need a benefit. Networking is extremely hard. I still want to bring, I like to bring it up though, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like you mentioned getting to know people. Like sometimes you talk to people for a few minutes, you go, we just, you're really cool, you're really smart, you really have all these things, but we just don't vibe. And sometimes you talk to somebody and you're like, wow, we really vibe, this is cool. And sometimes you talk to somebody and you get like sleazy car dealer 80s sleaze vibes off them, and you're like, cool, nice talking to you. And but yeah, at the end of the day, I think obviously it comes down to genuinely joining and being part of somebody's community. Like, I definitely ask people at this point. I definitely ask people at this point to be on my podcast who I've never talked to. I feel comfortable with that. But when it comes to like getting to know people better, I generally make sure that I've made the effort to not just pop by for 5 minutes here and there so they know my name, but actually have involved myself so the community knows who I am, so they know that I'm genuinely part of the community, so that, but yeah, it's difficult, but I also think it's important because people talk about metas and growth and all these things, but I do think there is plateaus and thresholds in content creation that if you look at the largest streamers and down to the smallest streamers, that you really do get through by, again, it comes down to community and community sharing, by finding creators that you vibe with, who you respect, who share similarities. That cross-pollination of communities, I think, is super important. And I don't mean just like finding people that'll raid you or that you can get to raid or that you can raid off to, but like raids are a wonderful handshake, like you mentioned with Rin. Sometimes a raid's a nice way to make an initial connection, but honestly, I kind of rambling here, but I like to talk about it because I think it's important to find those people you can genuinely connect with in your community, as well as other peers who stream.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the whole like like self promotion and things like that. Being active in people's Discord, being noticed when you come into a chat because you're actually active there. You know, we always have these self promotion channels because we want to see what our community is doing. But I think a lot of people struggle to understand that like those self promotion channels in most people's Discords are going to get muted. That is not how you're going to grow yourself, your community, or your connections with people. It can help. It can make it easy for people to find you. But what you should be doing if you really want to grow and you want to get to know people and you want to touch base with someone that you respect, that is not the place to be. You know, be in people's chats, be on people's social medias, be within people's Discords and engage in activities that are doing in those, you know, happening in those Discords. You know, there's drawing competitions, there are, you know, housing competitions, ESO specific things when it comes to PvP, PvE, there can be fashion stuff, there can be movie nights, Q&A discussions. Some people do stuff like that. Engage in events, engage in moments, not necessarily just like that one channel where you're just like spamming like one same link every single time the same thing happens. Like make moments with people, make them remember you.
I'll be honest, I actually removed that channel from my Discord completely because I knew my own interactions with it. I knew other people's interactions with it. I knew it wasn't benefiting. Most of the people who used it were beautiful and wonderful people of the community who I want people to know about their streams. But like you said, it's kind of,
there's better ways,
gets ignored. I used a bot that shows now over on the side if somebody's live. It gives them like a little special role that says they're live. So if you've gotten to know somebody and you look at the channel list of people, you go, oh, so and so. Yeah, I've tried to do things like that because, like you said, that channel, you can spam all day in that channel, but people kind of like.
You could be like, I'm giving away $500 in that channel, and it would probably never be read. And it's not always the case. And like I said, I try to keep up with it. I generally try and see that as like, you know, when am my community going live? Because I'm often like off Discord or sleeping or whatever it might be. And I also have the same thing, like where it shows that people are live on the side panel to try and make sure that people are aware, even if they're not going to go to a certain channel. You know, it's helped me see when people that I used to watch have come back because they've posted in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, you. And then social chat, hey, you came back to streaming, or your, you know, Etsy shop's back open. Like, what's going on? Like, how are things? But that doesn't necessarily mean that other people are going to do that. And it was just, I know it was a bit of a tangent, but I just want to touch on that because I feel like so many people spend 15 minutes in 50 different Discords copying the same message, sometimes with an @everyone still there. Guys, I know that it probably won't work, but just be cautious. It's not the point. Don't use @everyone in other people's Discord servers. And it's just use that 15 minutes to just, you know, go outside, take a breath of fresh air, read another page in a book, like grow yourself, grow your community, connect with someone. Rather than doing that, because I feel like there's so much pressure to do that, and it's half the time, more than half the time, not going to be seen. It's not going to be of value to you in a day, in a week, in a month.
And it's very true. And the thing is there's just so much misinformation out there when it comes to streaming, and some of it's not intentional. Some of it was true 4 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
6 months ago. Again, the most iconic thing I can think of is there's a clip that went around of Ninja, not Ninja 614 from ESO, but, you know, big blue-haired FPS Ninja.
That Ninja.
who put out a course on one of those services that, you know, they reached out to him to have a course. And literally the advice clip that he gives, which was probably true when Twitch was brand new, is keep the list of people who are in your channel open, and when you see a new name pop in there, address that person by name. We know in current Twitch land, people like to lurk, and the worst thing you could do is call lurkers out of lurk. And I don't think Ninja's giving advice to deliberately give bad advice, but I think it's the most glaring kind of thing of like,
it used to be good.
It used to be,
but it's
good.
not now.
and I think it makes it a minefield, because when you look up, like when I was getting into streaming, I'm looking at all these streaming things, you have to like start realizing I need to look up stuff that's recent, and I need to look at the comments under it and kind of get a gauge if this is valid or not, because there's just so much misinformation, because Twitch itself will change its backend without telling anybody every 2 months, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Take everything with a grain of salt and do more than just like a one video research. Like if you're really wanting to research something, anything, not just Twitch, you need to take the time to research it as if it was for like, are you going to give a presentation to your boss about this? Even if you're never going to talk to anyone about this, research it to the point that you can back up things with like facts, with, with numbers. Don't look at numbers maybe later on, but like when you're trying to research something, you need to actually be able to say, this is what's happening, this is why, and this is how I can prove it. Because if you just watch one video and you're like, yeah, I should call out absolutely everybody in chat. Sweet, no, just no. And that's horrible.
And as a callback, it goes back to being yourself. And because I was on somebody's Discord. I think you're on the same Discord, but I don't want to call it the person because it was on their Discord. But the conversation came up recently about rotating widgets. And I don't think they're bad to show who's recently followed and who's recently subbed and things like that. The conversation came up, are they needed? And I think it comes down to, again, your overlays, what you do is really indicative of your personality showing through. I know I've done a lot of things with my streams that are no-nos, but they're fine because
they're fun for you.
They're fun for me. They're indicative of our community and things like that. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's also when you take any advice, even this podcast, any advice you hear, if something resonates, sounds true, take it, run with it, try it. If you hear something that you go, I don't think that's right, just let it float off into the distance and don't worry about it. Because again, it comes down to being you and doing what's right for you with all things, I think is the most important takeaway.
And speaking of overlays and going live for the first time, don't wait to spend like thousands of dollars on the perfect overlay and a great camera and audio setup. If you have decent audio and a decent internet connection and you want to stream, go for it and just learn from there. Stop spending every check that you have from your payday on something new and but I'll go live when I get that next piece of just do it. See if you even enjoy it before you spend thousands of dollars on equipment.
I am in no way sponsored by Elgato or Corsair, but I want to say Epoch Camera is a free piece of software that makes literally this, your phone, Android or iPhone, including older models, into a webcam that is as good as any other webcam out there. In OBS, you can adjust your audio setting. It doesn't need to sound perfect, but when you listen back to your stream later, you can adjust your audio in OBS, even if you're using a headset mic, and make it sound all right. But I just want to second what MsRadcore said. Any advancement I have to my tech in my stream was reinvesting in myself. So once I made X amount of money through streaming, I decided, I've raised $400 in streaming. I put it all aside. I'm going to buy this shirt, SM7B. I love this microphone, but this microphone was not my starting microphone because, like you said, you will always create reasons. I don't have emotes, I don't have overlays, don't have audio, don't have video, don't have this to not go live. If you want to go live, you learn from going live, and as scary as it is, the engagement comes more from the person. There's plenty of people who stream even without a camera, which is a little pixel avatar, and do amazing. I actually just want to throw a shout out to community member Noble Valor, who streams with an avatar, and he has an amazing stream, just as a kind of an aside, as somebody who, like, people say you have to have this, so I think it's important.
You don't have to have anything other than the drive to build your own place on the internet. And touching on like overlays, just to give you guys a bit of a heads up, I used to have a black OBS background with a border that was two colors, my purple and green that I love, on the edges, with like my camera and my game splotched, and sometimes I had like my cat pictures. That was it. I had like nothing in the background. Legitimately, it was just black void space because I didn't know what to put there, so I just didn't put anything. Go live, have fun, and evolve from there. 100%.
I went the opposite direction. I went overlays and bars and this and that and the other thing, and I started streaming in August of 2020, so over the last over a year and a half now, things have gotten more and more minimal. And then I've added little touches here and there. So like you can start from the most minimal and build up. You can start from,
or you can go too crazy and bring it back. But like again, you'll find your place.
But again, at the end of the day, it's just changing things that work for you. Because I think the most important thing to kind of build off of just hitting go live is just do the things that give you confidence. If flashy, moving GIFs and extensive overlay that you've put together gives you confidence, do it.
Do it.
If having all that stuff makes you stressed, don't have it. It's whatever's going to make you feel comfortable in your it's whatever makes you. If your PC can't handle it,
that's a terrible idea. Oh, that's another thing. My camera used to pause all the time because my PC at the time couldn't handle streaming, ESO on the graphics that I wanted, and my camera. So I would often, once I finally started using a camera, I'd have to turn it off like halfway through stream because it would just like lag, and I'd be talking and my picture would be like staring off into the distance or just completely paused. Like you grow, you change. It just depends on what you have available to you, what you can handle, what your PC can handle or console. Just be you. Comes back to what Nico said. Just be true to yourself. Have fun.
Because we've talked about all the stream advice about your time as a streamer, taking care of your mental health, networking, all these, I think, really kind of amazing things, really kind of got into it. It's been amazing. I'm just curious. I think be yourself. You've gotten a lot of really good advice. Is there any other piece of advice? You hop in the DeLorean, you go back in time, you are talking to you before you go live or somebody else who's thinking about going live. Is there a piece of advice that's not like, don't look at your numbers, be yourself? Like there's a lot of these standard advices. There's like a unique piece of advice you would give.
Don't be afraid to like pull away from situations, people, games that you are just not comfortable with. Even if you started out like happy and loving it or whatever it might be, it is okay that you know, maybe one day something happens or you just lose that interest to go, you know what, let's move on. Because the longer you wait, the worse it can get when you're internalizing things. Because even if it is as simple as I'm no longer enjoying this game, the longer you just keep pushing yourself, the more that it starts to show and it can really affect your community. It is completely okay to change how you feel because you are always changing as a person. The way that you feel on day dot is not how you're going to feel 5 years down the line about anything in your life. And that is all right. So make sure that you just continue to listen to how you're feeling and what you really want. And if that changes, go with it. Go with it.
And to build off of that, usually I wouldn't build off the advice piece, but it did resonate. Something I want to say, part of doing yourself and being willing to make changes, don't be afraid to change or to approach how you approach your community. What I mean by that is your community learns how to interact with you by watching you. If you tolerate very negative stuff, chat will be more negative. If you're okay with an abundance of cursing, chat will curse. If you love puns, they will make puns. If you're okay talking about other people's streams, people realize they can talk about, you know, they learn, a lot of people learn from watching what's okay. Like if you're okay with getting ribbed by your chat, having them, you know, just make sure, like, if it's something you're not comfortable with, never feel your viewer. And it's easy to get rid of like a hate viewer. It's easy to get rid of somebody who's like a super negative person. But the truth is, never be afraid to just say, hey, this crosses a line. I'm not comfortable with this on my stream. It might be okay other places, but here, that's not cool. Because and if that changes, it's okay to move that line. Because again, chat and your community will move with where you set the line. So I think I wanted to build off of, it's okay to change games. It's okay to change what you do for content. It's also okay to be like, I was originally okay with this. As I've been doing this for 6 months, this actually causes me mental duress. So hey, let's have a little quick chat. I like to rein this back in. This is how it's affecting me, and your community the majority will move with you. So
yeah, and the ones that maybe weren't there for that particular moment in time will continue to learn from, again, what's actually happening in chat, how you then interact with perhaps those couple of people that missed that little announcement. Like, it'll all just sort of mold into that next phase of your life on social media where people understand how you're feeling and what you really need to be able to be confident and comfortable with your community and with yourself. So just go with it. And like Loctavian said, definitely don't ever feel so uncomfortable that you can't say something to your community. You're a part of that community. And in a lot of ways, you are the reason for that little corner of the internet. So you've got to do some tidying up sometimes. You know, it can't stay the same. It can't.
All right. And now let's just do we like to do a couple rapid fires, kind of like a little, like a tasty treat at the end of the stream. Get the energy back up. So I'm going to ask a couple rapid fires, no wrong answers. Starting with everybody's favorite current game on the internet, Smash or Pass. Or if you're uncomfortable with Smash or Pass, we can go with a date or not date. And we're going to go with the body pillow in the background. Dagon, Mayroon's Dagon, Daddy Dagon, Smash or Pass.
I mean, Smash.
Yeah, big 8 ab glow up, and he's got forearms for hugging. You've been doing a lot of Minecraft. Minecraft has introduced lush caves and many amazing new blocks. Do you have a particular favorite block in Minecraft? Copper?
And all the different variants.
I was about to ask if you had a specific variant, but the different gradients. Copper is wonderful.
I enjoy it feels like a lived-in space when you use copper. I hope that this is how Minecraft continues to grow. And they seem to be doing that. It's very lived-in space. It progresses over time. I think that's really cool. Yeah,
the upcoming update that adds mangrove trees and mud bricks and stuff looks amazing.
Yes.
My favorite block is actually not in the game yet. It's only in the incrementals that they put out, the snapshots they put out. The new mangrove tree has a dark reddish hue to it. It's not like the bright red. And so
it looks like a piece of meat or a beetroot block.
It's actually my new favorite block because it goes so well with my other favorite block, which has been the blackstone. But
yes, oh my god, it would. Yeah.
Another couple other real quick rapid fires. Just going through all the different games you do. You've been doing Dragon Age Inquisition. Who you romancing?
Everyone. Absolutely everyone, because that's what chat wants. I haven't landed on a specific. They're all pretty cute. They're all pretty cute. I like them all. They've all got good and bad. Some very bad.
They all have good and bad, and some are Sarah, who's the best.
Yes, yeah, ego's right though. I am kind of leaning towards Josie.
Oh, okay.
She's pretty adorable.
Yeah, Sarah was my go-to the first time through.
She's cheeky.
I was going for Blackwell, and it got too boring, and I was out of that. But
right, like he looks like a good idea, right?
He's got so much, and you know what? I gotta fix the world. I don't have time to fix him.
Yeah, no, can't help him.
Awesome. So thank you for that. Again, we're going to be going into the Q&A. Audio listeners, YouTube viewers, you can catch that as the 0.5 thing. But before we go with that, I want to thank you so much for taking the last hour or so out of your day, times when you would normally stream, to be on the podcast. If you could go ahead and shout out your social medias, your Twitch, anything like that, so our audio listeners, YouTube viewers, everybody knows where to find you.
Well, thank you very much for either listening or watching, and thank you again, Loctavian, for having me on your Kraken cast. I'm Kristen. However, you can find me on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter as MsRadcore, MsRadcore. And I'm also on Discord. That's where you'll find me most of the time. Actually too much, but that's fine. And currently streaming 4 days a week on Twitch. That's my main sort of interaction.
Appreciate you coming on with a headache and everything else that's been going on. Thank you so much for taking time.
I've been so excited for this. Thank you for having me back.